Hello everyone and welcome to TDX 2025. A very exciting event, as you can see behind me, a lot of people around, I think a few thousands of people joined this event.
It's a lot of excitement here today.
I'm very lucky, we are very lucky. We are here with the SVP of Product for Salesforce. His name is John Kucera. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. I feel like the lucky one, having the privilege to talk to all of you today about all of the great innovation that our customers are excited about and the success that they're seeing.
John, we have a lot of things to cover, and what I love is that you are really hands-on in building those products, so you know everything that we are wondering.
And you'll definitely be able to, not everything,
but you'll be able to answer most of the questions that are top of our minds. And some of those questions that are very important for us in business is when we talk about AgentForce, which is the new platform that was launched 6 months ago. What can we do with that? How can we deploy it? What you've seen as the use case that's working well? The benefits companies can get from it, how they can get started, and as well as some questions around what are the guardrails? How can we
can you trust it?
How can you trust? How can we control those agents that are everywhere in our companies, that could be everywhere in our companies, and making us more relaxed about what could happen, and so you will tell us more about those controls, those safeguards, those guardrails, and so on that are available. And to start with, John, I watched your LinkedIn resume, and you've been in the company for 16 years.
I have. I've been fortunate to be at Salesforce since it was 2,500 employees, and now we're about 30 times as large, thanks to the success of our customers and the trust they've put in us.
Amazing. So I guess it's a good company to work for.
It's been a great company for me, and I appreciate the leadership and the values and the innovation that we're able to deliver. It's been a great journey.
Excellent. So this morning we had the keynote.
Yes.
At the keynote, several announcements. One of the key one was the release of the 2.5 of the AgentForce platform.
Yes, AgentForce 2DX.
Yes, and the TDX aspect, which is the capacity for, I mean, you will explain better than I do, but capacity for developers to really be hands-on in developing agents.
Yes.
So meaning more control as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're trying to make it easier for everybody to see the productivity and benefits of building these agents. And we're trying to both lower the floor so that a business analyst can make an agent in minutes, and also raise the ceiling so that a developer can make that agent work anywhere. You can integrate it into all of your existing systems. It could be with your ERP, it could be a robotic process automation process. And that's some of what we are announcing with AgentForce 2DX.
Yes, and that's a very interesting point, because I think the future is about this. You have low-code type of aspects in the platform that are more business related and that can be managed by business analysts and business people, and you have more in-depth aspects of the platform, maybe related to ethics and controls and privacy and security, that can be managed by more technical people. I think that's really the future, combining those two aspects, two dimensions, and two type of people working together building agents.
Yes, that's my hypothesis, is that we're democratizing agent creation. Similar to how you have people doing very different types of tasks, and you have, I would call it the less governed tasks, such as your collaboration software. Like I might go and email back and forth to coordinate with you, and so that's usually less governed and less structured. And we have great tools within Slack to make workflows and channels. One of the agents that I love internally, we have an agent that auto-responds to technical support questions our own employees ask inside of Slack. And so that's an example of an agent that can be built pretty darn quickly by giving it Slack information and other data to then deflect a lot of the work. And then we have a highly sophisticated agent that was built by developers with a very custom chat interface on help.salesforce.com. And so we made that possible by having the APIs that we just described today available, so that we have a lot of people that can bring in clean data, can make it trusted, can put it in an unauthenticated place. It knows when you're verified, and then answer your questions to make you successful in whatever you're asking. And so I've been really excited to see that dichotomy supported by the innovation that my team's been building.
Excellent. John, can you tell us in a few seconds how we went from the first version of the platform, AgentForce, this was in September, 6 months ago,
yes,
to now the 2.5 version, and we are in March, beginning of March. So all this has been so fast.
Yes.
Tell us about this incredible journey you've been through.
The pace of innovation in the market holistically continues to accelerate. You have vendors that are creating new models, new techniques, new ways of doing things every day. It's like a full-time job, especially if you're in AI, just to keep up with the changes in the market. Also, we're contributing to that by ourselves being able to use that innovation to then create the next technology faster than ever. So we ourselves are using the technology to build the next technology. As an example, when we launched, we didn't have Testing Center. This is technology to help you verify the agent's doing what it's supposed to and not what it's supposed to. And then we expect, in basically 2 weeks from now, we're going to put generative AI on top of that so you can automatically create test cases. And so now you no longer have to create the 100 different rows of what you want the agent to do. And so I could give you 40 more examples of where we continue to make the agents smarter, faster to build, easier to go live. And then the next phase that we're focused a ton on is what I call agent supervision. How do you make sure that the agent's doing what it's supposed to, correcting the mistakes that it might make quickly, identifying all of that, and then deploying the changes out there. And so that's the next wave of innovation we're focused on the next couple of months.
Very exciting. So you explained to us, yes, how we went through in the last 6 months, from a first version to a 2.5 version now. And what are the capabilities that evolved through those 6 months? What are,
so
have been the journey?
So as an example, when we first launched our first agents,
yes,
they could only do text. One of the things we're fast at work at is uploading files.
Text meaning, you mean?
No, you talk, you write text,
okay,
and then it responds in text. And then
Q&A,
we added
Q&A type.
Yes, and one of the innovations we were talking about today in the keynote is the ability to have rich UI output by the agent dynamically. And so we've been calling that response actions. And you can do that inside of Salesforce, you can do it on a third-party website.
Just to make it clear, this is, for example, the capacity to have buttons.
It could be buttons, it could be a card, it could be a chart.
Okay, within the response from
the agent. So it's not just giving you a list of bulleted text, but it can give you a formatted graph.
Options for a meeting, option 1, option 2, option 3, and you can just click on those
Exactly
options.
Right. And when we launched our agents so that they could be on a lot of our digital engagement channels. You can put it on a website, you can put it inside of a native app, you can use WhatsApp for it, and more. And what we've added is now these agents also work in Slack, where there are tens of millions of users that spend far too much of their day having messages back and forth. Wouldn't it be great to have agents that work in the flow of work that can automatically work with you to do your job better and automate a bunch of the tasks you don't want to? So that's another great innovation. Another change that we introduced is the ability to automatically trigger the agents. Wouldn't it be great to have an agent that would be triggered automatically when you're at a certain stage of your sales deal? It can then do some research for you on the internet. It can then craft a nice response to the CIO on an objection. It can then create a business plan and basically a next step for the account, save that to the opportunity so that the account executives can then handle that next step better. That's just one of many examples that our customers are already doing with triggered agents. And then we're creating the tools to help you manage and test these agents. I talked about Testing Center. But we also have really robust analytics. How often is the agent helping out customers and employees? What did it do? How many times is it doing this action versus that action? And then the troubleshooting. Why was this answer bad and how do I fix it? These are all innovations that we've really focused very hard and quickly on to make the agents smarter, faster to build, easier to maintain, in a trusted way.
Excellent. Let's deep dive into those aspects of observability, control, and security. Can you describe what is available within the platform to kind of make us more relaxed about these aspects that can be top of mind of some people?
There's a lot of fears both with generative AI and generally with software. And so some of the questions come to data privacy and data access. Okay. And so Salesforce has robust controls already so that the data that customers are entrusting Salesforce with can be permissioned. You can say who can access this database table, your customers, your orders, your engagement information, your returns. You can say who can access this row of data, this order, this customer, this email. You can say who can access this field, the name, the phone number, the title. All of these controls exist. We added new controls to Data Cloud recently for more data policies as well, to add even more governance for our customers.
So we had the example during the keynote this morning of going into the logs of what the agents did while interacting with the clients, and we saw that the name of the client and the email address of the client, both of them were hidden for privacy reasons.
And so
this is something
with our generative AI stack, we call this our trust layer. And so part of this is what we call data masking. And so for data masking, both customers can say which fields that they want to be redacted and never sent off over the internet to a model. We do that in a couple different ways. One of them is with some fancy AI ourselves to detect certain patterns. Others are customers saying, never send this over and I am going to mask it before it gets inserted into the agent. And that's just one of the many trust layer controls. We do bias and toxicity scoring so that you know for every request that goes out, what was Salesforce's score of how risky it might be. We have 7 other controls every time you make a request to an agent to validate that it's doing what it's supposed to. We make sure the agent can't just make up data that doesn't exist. It can't make up a category of problems that you didn't explicitly entrust the agent with. It can't make up an action that you didn't explicitly define. It can't make up the data that goes into that action. And then we also give you some accuracy checks on the other side as well.
Yes. So just to finish on this security aspect, before going into what you started to go into, which is hallucinations and how do you make sure that it's doing the right thing. On the security aspect, so you can make sure that anyone looking at the logs has the right to see the email address and the names of the people who were within the conversation with the agent, for example. That's amazing. I mean, like in terms of privacy, that's a big step. I really like it. Let's move now to how do we make sure that those agents that are built on large language models.
Yes.
We all know those large language models from using ChatGPT, who can be very creative, who can hallucinate a lot. How do we make sure those agents are not hallucinating in what they are doing? So basically, how do I make sure that if the agent is supposed to answer this to a client or to send a document to a client, it does it well and it doesn't do something that it's not supposed to do?
So first I'll use your definition to talk about beware of false agents. If it is not generative AI, a large language model usually, deciding what to do, getting the data and taking action, it's not an agent. A lot of people are claiming that buttons that do summaries are agents, and they're just not. And so what we've done to help create these guardrails and that trust is add all of these different aspects of checks and control and visibility. And so a lot of this helps customers feel safe getting started, even in highly regulated industries. It's everything from those checks I was referring to. Make sure that the agent isn't making up actions and topics and instructions that don't exist. The agent can't make up data that doesn't exist.
What I understood this morning, and you will tell me more, is we are coming from a legacy of a platform with functionalities like flow and so on, which are deterministic type of automations.
Yeah.
Where we used to configure the system by saying, if something happens, then you do that. If something, so we had to plan every cases.
Yeah, you have to
options.
map that out, usually in a big decision tree document.
And that was what was the issue with the automation of the past before large language models and before the agents. Is we had so much work to do to manage all the exceptions and options. Mm-hmm. Now with large language models, we have this capacity to handle more options.
I think of agents as generating flows.
Just to make sure I don't lose my idea. And what I understood this morning from the keynote was the right way to manage the possible hallucinations from the large language models is to combine the deterministic aspect, some deterministic aspect of the workflows with large language models, which are non-deterministic. Mm-hmm. To try to get to a combination where we control as much as possible the potential hallucinations.
Yes. I hate jargon, so I try to use simpler words. I have a war on jargon. And so I have a battle internally on the words deterministic and probabilistic. I like rules. And so having rules is good. You don't want your agent to learn that it's illegal to do business in Hawaii the hard way. That's a very expensive rule to learn. You want to give it a rule. And so what I think's changed is you used to have to give it a rule with code or pseudocode. Now you can give it a sentence. And so now a sentence can be a rule, which drastically reduces the expertise you need to add that predictability. And so now you can add these rules with topic instructions. That's what we call them. Fancy words are prompt engineering. You can give these rules and these instructions to the agent. Do this, don't do that. Never do a return if it's over $100. Always escalate to a person. First, ask for the email address before you qualify for intent. These are the types of rules you can write sentences in to have the agent do what it's supposed to.
Those rules are kind of hard-coded into the flow of the process.
Yeah, I would say they're hard
within those rules,
write them.
Correct. There are steps. I mean, what I mean is there are steps, mandatory steps within the process, so that you make sure that they are followed, even though each of those steps can be managed in a more large language models way, like more probabilistic way. But having those different steps clearly defined and the one after the other on a deterministic way helps to control these hallucinations.
Yeah, and I think of it kind of like training a new hire. And so a lot of times these are policies or norms or how things work. And so sometimes you'll give a new hire, here's a decision tree of what you do, but a lot of times you'll just kind of describe it. Okay, customer support rep, here's your job. You have to make people successful. Here's how you answer it. Okay, let's talk about how you go through and troubleshoot a password reset. Let's talk about how you handle an upset customer who is trying to initiate a return. And you'll give guidance. You'll have training manuals and documents. Those same sentences can be used to guide an agent. And then, unlike a person, you can test it. We've got tests where you basically can say, agent, do this 100 things. And then prove to me that you're ready for the job. Prove to me that your training time is over. You are now ready to be put in front of customers. And this testing gives you the confidence to do so. And then we also have the flip side of that. As a manager, you want to make sure that your employees are acting in a good way that meets all of your company's expectations. Your code of conduct. Maybe you want your customer or your employees to be polite. You want your agents to be polite. You want them to be informative and smart and answer all of these questions. You can test all of that. We have all of the logging in there so that you can monitor and manage and supervise. And then we also have your HR type of coaching where you can change the behavior of the agents quickly and then create a set of tests to make sure that the bad thing doesn't happen again.
Yes.
And so we're in the early innings of all of this, but I feel super excited that we're building tools that nobody else has to help our customers feel confident doing more and more with these agents.
Excellent, and I think that's a good way to think of making always this analogy between the agent and a new hire that we would have in a company who don't know anything about the company, the rules, the policies, the processes, and so on. So we need to explain everything into the detail to make sure that everything is clear. We don't need to anymore to configure all this into the detail.
Yeah, that's exactly
right.
right.
We need to explain it the same way as we do with a new employee.
And it's this really interesting juxtaposition. These models have PhD level expertise in every subject.
Yes.
They don't know your business and your policies.
That's funny.
And so you take that PhD level expertise, this amazing ability to write code, you give it access to your trusted business data with guardrails, and you can create really productive customer experiences.
Yes. Yes, and you make me think about another question that I'm burning to ask you. It's, for me, the next step in all this is the learning abilities. So basically the capacity for the agent to learn from what it does, so that we spend less time teaching it.
Yes.
And we clearly see those chain of thought large reasoning models able to go through a chain of thought process that could be within those agents and that could help them to learn from doing, basically. And is it something that we could see in the next versions?
Yes, I think that the industry is going to try to move here as fast as possible.
Yes.
Some of what breaks my brain at times is the pace of change on the performance curve for models. So one graph that I saw that stuck with me, GPT was introduced in about 2021. 3 years later, better models were 1,000 times cheaper. That is crazy. That's more than 3 times Moore's law. Now that's not going to continue forever, but we're not done getting better speed, cost, performance out of new models. And what happens when the technology gets cheaper, I've observed that everybody in generative AI finds any problem can be solved with more generative AI. And so as you introduce a problem, you can put more generative AI to solve that problem. So as an example for this, we already have generative AI to help you build agents. We just introduced this week that you can put in a prompt to go and build the agent. In 2 weeks, we'll have generative AI to go build your test cases. Then we'll be introducing more generative AI to analyze all of the sessions that the agents had. Basically a performance review on every single interaction. Then we're gonna have more generative AI to give you a recommendation for the bad answers of how you can improve it. And so this is gonna continue to accelerate the pace of building and expanding what the agents can do. Because you now can scale trust. You can scale your confidence that your first experiment with your agent is working. It's doing what it's supposed to. I know when it's not doing what it's supposed to. I'm comfortable with that, or I'm fixing that. Let's do more.
Amazing vision, amazing, very exciting what you're sharing with us. And as you just said at the last sentence, I think it's a rule that we should keep. Start small and see how it works and improve in time. So, as we were discussing, the memory and the capacity to learn will come, but we need to build first the foundations to get there.
Yeah, and I missed on memory. We already have a version of long-term memory through Data Cloud.
Okay.
And so with that, it has the data that you give it access to, the customers, the interactions you've had with customers, but also your policies and how you solve problems. So as an example, with this Slack agent, what we're doing is we're feeding that Slack channel's answers back into Data Cloud so that the next time somebody asks that same question, the agent has learned. It can pull back that answer so that it doesn't have to go to a person the next time.
Excellent, excellent. That's an amazing discussion. I love it. Thank you, John. So we talked about how we can control the activity of an agent through more deterministic and mixing non-deterministic. We talked about what I would love to talk about is how we can control what has been done and learn from it. So basically the observability. How can we know what the agent has done and kind of learn from it? But yeah, being
Sure.
able to.
Yeah, so the first step, kind of like any of my employees, would be you collect information. Now, usually with people, you don't have that much information on how well did they do their job? What was the interaction? Was it good or bad? Literally every single thing that an agent does is logged. We call that part of our trust layer, an audit trail. And so you have the entire chat history. You know all of the actions that it called. You know all of the inputs to it, all the outputs to it. And then what we're fast at work at is putting all that data to work to make it easier to figure out, did it do its job well? Was it good? Which answers were bad? What was the category of the good and bad ones? Let me dive into that specific answer. Okay, we were talking about order management. Somebody wanted to initiate a return. It got tripped up because it thought that skirt was a reserved word and it didn't answer the question. I need to go and change this so that it doesn't do that. I have now coached my agent, I've corrected it, and now I know that it's going to do the right thing. Like that kind of loop is what we're really focused on. How do we make sure that we have all that data, that it's available to you in an easy to use fashion, that you can use to take corrective behavior?
Excellent. So it's kind of the performance assessment of a new hire.
It's agent supervision, agent management.
So it's you can see the performance, but you can also see if, in terms of control, it did the right thing and correct any problems or any mistakes.
And also celebrate the successes. Like you need to know, is it delivering the productivity and value that I wanted? And so that's what we have with our agent analytics out of the box. How many times did it interact with customers or employees? Did it solve the problem? And how can you make it better?
Excellent. John, I would love to spend 1 or 2 hours with you, and I'm sure
Likewise.
most of the people listening here. But yeah, you have just as much available time, so we need to make an end. Just give us a last word
Sure.
on
I continue to be so excited about what so many customers are thinking up and doing. I've talked to street sweeping companies who are using AgentForce to schedule new street sweeper requests. I've talked to mouth guard companies who did not have support before that created their first 24/7 support on their website in about a month. I've talked to Fortune 1000 customers like ourselves, like Accenture and others, who are able to unlock all of this data to have case deflection and support processes live. I've talked to other customers who are automating parts of their sales qualification really quickly. And so I continue to be so excited about the innovation I've seen out there and the ability of customers to get started fast and see this value.
John, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, and to all of you, see you soon.
Take care.